Hi, I'm Travis,
And I'm Greg,
and you're listening to Building Blank.
a collaborative world building podcast.
And today we're taking a look at the different styles of world building. All right, and Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, and Happy New Year to you, Travis.
Thank you. How are you doing, Greg?
Oh, well, I don't know. This lockdown's kind of getting me down a bit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting pretty bad.
Hopefully we can have a little bit of fun and talk about some world building today.
Okay, yeah. And where do we start with hard and soft world building?
So I think we can talk about definitions here. No, maybe not definitions, but what is hard and soft world building? So with hard world building, the little quote I got here is: a hard world builder knows and shares as much as they can about their fantasy world. For example, Tolkien spent over a decade creating a cosmology, history, cultures, and even languages for Middle-earth. He knew every element of his world and shared as much of that info as he possibly could with the readers within the text itself. From, the creation of the world, the gods, how the mountains were built, how every race came into being, everything's there and you can read it. It might not be in Lord of the Rings specifically, but there is a bunch in there.
Yeah, and it's kind of important. Where do you draw the line? Because he didn't have all of that stuff in the Lord of the Rings itself, right? He had the Silmarillion explain a lot of it, which is really that was published afterwards by his son, right? I don't think he maybe intended on publishing it. Maybe he did, but that was
a lot of it
him.
Was there though, right? There is a lot of stuff in Lord of the Rings that probably doesn't really need to be there for the enjoyment of the story. We learn a lot about the world.
Yeah, definitely. But that's about being relevant to the story, right?
Mm-hmm. So taking a opposite or adjacent opposite. So a soft world builder only shares what little they know about their world, which they often don't fully work out. For example, if we look at the Miyazaki film Spirited Away, which very good movie, there are all kinds of gods and spirits who visit the bathhouse, none of which are explained. We don't know where these creatures come from, what their function is in the world, or how their society is organized. All we know is that they visit the bathhouse to eat food and take a bath.
Right.
And based on how little consistency there is in the world, and whatever magic system there is, it's really unlikely that he had any intended consistency or coherency. In fact, in interviews, Miyazaki has often admitted that he's so focused on the aesthetics and the emotional quality of his stories that he neglects the internal consistency of his narratives. It's all about the story. The background doesn't matter other than what pertains to the story. Yeah,
and that's kind of like when we talk about our more the science that we get into when we're talking about does a river go here, or would a mountain really be like that?
Yeah, it's
kind of like how much you really want to go into it, and one version isn't better than any other.
No, I'm and hard world building doesn't mean that the science is there, right? You can do hard world building with none of the science.
Yeah, it just has to be explained, right?
Yeah, as long as it is explained in some way, it can be all about, the gods created it this way because they created it this way. Or, it is how it is because of magic.
Yeah. Right? And so we could call it a kind of a spectrum, really, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make clear that, you don't have, if you want to go hard world building, you don't have to do the science.
Yeah.
Because Tolkien didn't. His stuff isn't based in science. It was the gods saying the world into existence.
Yeah, I really like thinking of that as an example, because Mordor, right, is that's basically a square of mountains.
Yeah, it's perfectly
right
square.
Angles. But also, he talks about that in the Silmarillion a little bit, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing, but basically the gods would I'm just going to call them gods because that's what they are.
Yeah.
Would make something, right? They would make a mountain, and then he says that Melkor, right, like the guy that's even worse, the big bad, worse than
Yeah.
Sauron, he would throw down the mountain and turn it into a valley, and like opposite thing, right? So
Yeah.
so it's easily explainable that he could have just made these mountains at some point, or somebody else did.
Yeah. Somebody made them. There's no talk of tectonic plates, but it's still considered one of the hardest world-built worlds, right?
Yeah, and so like where do you think you would land on that spectrum?
I kind of like having a middle ground approach. So I have another little disclaimer here. The middle way world builder is very close to a hard world builder, where they construct the world as fully as you can, so that the world is as logically coherent and consistent as possible. But like a soft world builder, they only reveal what is absolutely necessary for readers to know.
Yeah.
So
it's relevant, right?
Like I don't in my world follow the science. And you know that.
Right.
The desert is there because of some apocalyptic event way back when, where gods fought each other, right?
Yeah, and now it's just a wasteland.
It's a wasteland now, right? It's there because it's there. There's no real science behind it. None of my rivers or anything like, I know I needed a river in this place, so that's where it is. But I did, and there's gaps in mine, of course. But like wherever you guys are going in the story, there's stuff in there enough that you guys, if you ask me a question, I can either like quickly make up the answer or have enough to go on, right?
Right. That's kind of the nice thing about going, like when you go full hard, it's kind of hard to hide anything, right?
Yeah.
Or like it's obvious when you don't know something.
Yeah.
So that could be kind of the benefits of going soft, is like you can throw in a few things there that are just kind of throwaway things that you don't really even know about, maybe.
But also like taking a middle approach, the things that you do reveal very often let the readers or the players or whoever is the audience make assumptions. And if they are correct, great. They put the pieces together themselves, which kind of feels like an accomplishment, right?
Right. Okay.
Whereas if you're all just exposition and telling you, if I just told you exactly what every stone on the cobble street looked like, or, you know, how the roofs are thatched, or like this house is painted this color and that one's painted that color, you kind of leave some of the mystery and some of the, you know, some of the work out of reading, or not reading, but like,
well, the imagination.
The imagination, yeah. So basically, when I describe a city, I kind of tell you like kind of what the architecture theme is, would be equivalent in the real world, and you guys can, in my mind, when we're playing at the table, I describe it one way, but I assume that every character or building or anything looks different in every player's head.
Yeah, and like that's the beautiful thing about reading and world building in these fantasy settings, you know?
Yeah. So for example, like even like the art style that you imagine is probably different in my head than what's in your head.
What do you mean art style? Like what do you imagine?
So like in my head, it's like almost like a comic book art style.
Okay.
But like where it's like semi-realistic, but like I could also see someone imagining it in like an anime style.
Yeah.
Right. Or like a classical painting or real life live action. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely more the way I imagine it. I really try and do like a cinematic approach as if it was real life. And then from there, my imagination, sometimes I try and like go more of like World of Warcraft, the movie style.
Okay.
Kind of like CGI mixed within there, you know?
See, mine would be more World of Warcraft, the game style.
Okay.
in my mind when I'm describing everything.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd never really thought about that, but like the art style of an imagination. That's
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Like, what do you picture? And it's going to be different with everybody. So everyone at the table, everyone who reads the book, is going to picture it differently. Now, that picture is going to be kind of like based on some descriptors you give, but I don't want to describe every little detail. I want my players to fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah, like going back to where we land on the scale, I'm definitely like, and with the science and all that, I
Mhm.
just have a thing where I like to know everything,
Yeah.
like what's going on, even if I don't have to talk about it. And
Yeah. And it is
recent,
nice to know, like, us doing this has taught me a lot,
mhm,
but I don't think it really affects how I world build.
yeah,
Um,
like I really like the science as a baseline.
yeah.
That's why I like it. It's like, okay, if this was Earth, this is what it would be. And now from there, do I leave it at that? Because I know that's good enough because that's real life. Like this is how I think of it. And then from there, it's like, okay, that's cool, but maybe I want to do this thing instead. Like put a mountain somewhere, right? I need a
Yeah.
mountain somewhere. And it's like, okay, that wouldn't really make sense scientifically, but now I can write in a reason for it. And that's where like the magic and the fantasy comes in.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, you don't have to completely be married to the science, because most fantasy settings, unless that's what you're going for, like if that's what you're going for, by all means, you don't have to, because in most settings magic exists. And another thing that I had mentioned, we talked about this last week, when we were talking about the holidays, you were kind of married to the idea of, a pagan type celebration being taken over by another religion,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
which, thinking about it after, I'm like, that probably doesn't happen in a fantasy world, because, or very often, because gods and like religion figures and deities in fantasy are very often real, tangible things. Like, there is no question the cleric got their powers from this god. They exist,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
right?
not really a matter of faith. It's not so much as how much you believe it when they're real beings,
Yeah.
like anybody that's religious out there could argue that, the other side of that. But I mean, like you can touch it, you can see it given the right situation.
There's proof. Like, for example, in D&D, if you had the right spells and the right tools, you can go to Mount Olympia, or go to, the Nine Hells, or go to Arvandor, the place where the elven gods live, right? And
Yeah.
you can
So
meet
that,
these beings, right? It's a
yeah. So there
real
wouldn't be
tangible
no,
thing.
there'd be
Or
no
it's not,
taking over.
right? In your world completely. But like, that's the thing is, where do you draw the line? Like, does it have to be completely based in reality? No, because we have no proof that any kind of God exists in real life. But in
Yeah.
your world, you can.
But world building is so much fun though. Like it's so nice to kind of get lost in it sometimes.
Yeah. So, like, speaking of getting lost, um, what are some of the pitfalls that you found, or the traps?
Yeah. Well, there's like the one really that I know. It's just called the world builder's trap.
Okay.
And it's just that getting lost in the world building without any real reference to a story or a coherent narrative. It's just like basically kind of what we've been doing, which I think is fine. It's like world building for world building's sake is still a good reason. But
Yeah.
usually, and I mean, it's also the way we're doing it, right? We're talking about world building, and that's what we're talking about. And there are people that just love world building, but usually there's a story involved.
Yeah. Or something, whether it be a video game idea, or a D&D type game, or, a novel or a short story or something. There's something involved usually.
Yeah, and then that's where the trap comes in because it's like you should be working on that. Like, okay, what's my next D&D campaign or whatever? Or okay, I need to write the next chapter of the book, or okay, I need to work on some bugs on my video game. I'm not a video game creator, so I don't know. But instead, you want to know, the creation myth of your whole world and every single. Well, I mean, that's maybe not a good example, but like, yeah, you getting into every little detail and procrastinating on what you really want to do by kind of hiding in the world building a bit.
Yeah. See, I find like I skeleton, like when I'm building my world, I skeleton and there's ideas that I have for different bits that I kind of move to the back burner because the story isn't going there right now. Right? If I think that the story will be going there in the next month, that's what I'm going to be working on. So my world is like a living world, right? I don't have everything written down to the T. I'd like to have more than I do. But there's like whole bits of my map that are just not developed whatsoever, other than the fact that you guys know that they're there because they're on the map.
Yeah, well, we did the very same thing with the podcast, right? Like, it's kind of like this myth almost too, like that you need to have a perfect world that's ready to go before you can start writing.
Yeah.
Or you need to have it all figured out before you can just get in and start going. But I think it's so important to get started first and then go from there.
Yeah. So like, it's really easy to procrastinate. And I'm really bad at procrastinating. I get nothing done very often, which is why I kind of like the middle road approach, which lets me leave things behind until I need them, or until my players need them, or my audience needs them. Yeah. I really like the iceberg theory or method.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
So the iceberg is, if you compare your world to an iceberg, a certain part of the iceberg is above the water, and hopefully is, as in nature, is much bigger. There's a much bigger part below. So right. The part above the water is the part that the player or reader sees. It's what you explicitly bring across to the player or / reader. I'm just going to say player because that's what I'm doing. Okay. The much bigger part below is what the player implicitly knows. It's what is assumed through the exploration. It's what the player extrapolates is correct, and it will make the world feel alive. It's consistent. It lives beyond the scene. It also makes the player reader trust you, and the player knows that if he's engaged and extrapolates, he'll be rewarded.
Yeah, it's like if you have a shopkeeper,
yeah,
at somewhere, and you introduce them, but then somebody wants to probe deeper, and meanwhile maybe you have like the iceberg had made an entire life story for this guy, and you're like, oh, thank you for asking about him, because I could just go on about this guy.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel real. But going back to you talking about the middle approach, that really kind of has to do with the medium you're working in as well, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because the medium's going to dictate what you do.
Yeah, you could go into all this super big detail, but like you're dealing with unknown like variables, which is like your players, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what the heck we're going to do.
That's the other thing. Like, as a D&D, from a D&D standpoint, I don't know what my players are going to do or what they're going to want to do until they tell me, right?
For example, and you just love that, eh?
I had no idea our friend Brad was going to take the airship that I gave you guys and start trying to buy and sell lumber wherever they could.
Well, I think he was trying to make it like the Planet Express from Futurama.
Yeah, I know he was. I didn't see it coming. And I was lucky enough to have a PDF that had price guides for that exact situation. Because I have a PDF about nautical campaigns and shipping. And I was like, okay, give me a second to pull this up because I'm just going to use that because you got me out of left field here. Another example of middle ground, like having more behind or the iceberg, is Do you remember very early on in the campaign, Greg, you asked me to give you a romantic interest?
Oh yeah,
That was specifically a gnome.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. It might take a few, might be a while to meet her, but yeah, I can work on that. So I made this character who was a barmaid
Yeah.
in Port Aquila, and gave her this big backstory that you could have learned, and then you dropped it because you didn't want to flirt with me.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I didn't think it all the way through. I was thinking, okay, yeah, I could flirt with this little gnome chick or whatever. I think that'd be funny. Then I didn't realize, like, I got caught up in my imagination. But yeah, I didn't realize that it was just me flirting with you in front of everybody. I'm like, I don't know.
I was okay with it.
Oh yeah, of course you're okay
with it. My
job. But yeah, no, I felt pretty uncomfortable. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
Which I don't blame you. But like, there is a gnome girl back in Port Aquila who has a very fleshed out backstory.
Well, that's good to know. Maybe I'll go back there or something.
Maybe
she'll still be there.
The boat.
No, I mean maybe not with this character, but maybe in the future.
Oh yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
But yeah, like that. It really depends on kind of the medium you're in. Like, I really like the control that I gain from writing a book. All the information is on the page. That's it. I mean, there can be stuff that's implied or hinted at, but like that's also done intentionally, and then I can really control what I'm working on.
Yeah, because like the characters are all really they're extensions of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what their motivations are, what they're going to do, what their plan is.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in a D&D setting or a role play game setting, I'm just going to say D&D because that's what I use. You don't know what the players are going to do. You don't know what they're thinking. You can guess. Like, most of the time, I'm pretty good at guessing what direction you guys are going to go in.
Yeah.
But you guys still come out of left field at me, right?
Yeah, or like maybe you have a player who is really just trying to like kind of break the system and thinks like, hey, if I'm a gnome druid lady and I summon these pixies that all know polymorph, am I saying it right?
Yeah, that's you're describing my character, old Grelka, in our friend Boone's campaign.
Yeah, when you told me that, I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, it's a good character. Basically, I play a super old gnome swamp witch who is just off her rocker crazy. But yeah, so I think with that, we are going to take a short break.
Okay, sounds good.
So we'll see you guys after. All right, and welcome to the break. So happy 2021, everyone. And we just want to share a couple of our plans for the next little bit with you all. So what we are going to do is we are going to come up with kind of character avatars for myself and Greg. I think next week we're going to do a characters episode where we're going to talk about that more. But what our plan is we want to do a little bit of art and make a couple webcomics and memes about blank and world building and just stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. What else are we doing, Greg?
Well, I have an update.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about those kind of like the dwarven language, right?
Yeah.
And so I've got a few made, but I'm going to have to go over them. Just, well, we were talking about the holidays, I mean, even though we're not traveling around, it's just like, I don't know, they're still just busy somehow,
Yeah, exactly. I hear you.
But yeah, so still working on that. And then I've also been working on some kind of like music productions sort of stuff. And I think I've got a good melody as something we can use for the theme. so we can use our own music for the podcast.
Yeah, so Greg's developing an original soundtrack. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd call it a soundtrack.
Well, a theme anyway.
Yeah,
that's great. We are also going to start making like D&D adventure modules using Blank probably in the next month or so. Start working on like one-shot adventures that we would put up available for download.
Well, and then that goes right into, we were thinking of playing some, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna come up with some stories and come up with some modules, and then invite some of our friends and do some live games, or not live, but like do a game and post it somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be live.
Could be live. We could do a Twitch. The other thing that we're doing is we're gonna start like fiddling with our format a little bit, because some things work, some things don't. We're gonna start using trying different programs for recording and such. To try to make everything a little bit smoother. We're going to do some work on our makeshift studio to make that a little bit better. So there's a bunch of updates coming, a bunch of things that we're working on right now. Keep in touch, keep listening, and watch out for some of these cool things that we're working on.
Yeah, that sounds great. We just want to make the quality as good as we can. So, because we value your time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We appreciate your time. We just want to make it as best as we possibly can. So thank you everyone for listening, and let's get back to it. Let's build something.
Sounds good.
All right, and welcome back.
Yeah, and welcome to 2021. Oh man.
All right, so
it's over.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're going to do today is we are going to zoom in on Delta City, and which district. What we're going to do is we discussed this a little bit, and are just going to make up some ins.
We've kind of been teasing about working in the city and building something for the last few episodes,
yeah.
Eh?
So I always start with an in per district. I would like to do 2 per district.
Okay, I like that. The only thing I was thinking was, what would the inns look like for the orcs? Is what I was getting hung up on.
Okay, so what I kind of want to do is a fancier, higher, more expensive, and like a lower end for each district, right?
Yeah, and if we're following basically our inspiration or template of the orcs being like elves, do you think they would be the higher end?
They would be both.
Oh, I see what you're saying. One each,
right?
Oh, okay. I missed that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I got you.
So, like, for example, if we go to the Dwarven section to start,
right,
there will be a fancier inn and like a lower, seedier inn, right?
Okay. Is this something you normally do?
Yeah, what I do is, unless like it's a small town or something where there's only one in a district, or I kind of like divide up the districts by like which district is more affluent, right?
Right.
But the way we've set this up, I think that there's probably going to be multiple neighborhoods inside of these districts. So what we could do is we could have each one having both.
Like, because it's not an inn, was basically just kind of like impromptu, where
Okay.
it was more like it was kind of just more like in the street, but it was like this special thing, like almost like kind of like you go down a back alley and it's only where the dwarves go, and it's only like working class, and it's not really official, but it kind of is.
It's just like out in the street, and sometimes it moves.
Yeah, but, exactly.
You know, old Darren sets up his shop somewhere. It's like a hot dog cart, but a pub.
Yeah,
like or a beer garden.
yeah, exactly. And maybe they don't have a permit or something, and they're being chased around the city.
That is an amazing idea.
How do you spell Daron? Daron?
Sure.
Daron. I like that. Good name on the fly.
Yeah, that was completely on the fly. So when I'm naming inns and basically naming any, when I try to name any kind of establishment, I usually pull up a generator, and then like take. I don't usually use whatever it generates, but I'll take like part of it and then part of something else, right?
Yeah, it gives your mind something to focus on.
Yeah, it gives me some ideas. I'm just scrolling. I got a generator up
What are you scrolling for?
for this inn name.
Okay, because I was thinking like Daron's Dive.
Darn's Dive. Okay, I like that.
Like as a start. But what did the generator come up with?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of different things here, but just like the Mammoth Dragon Inn or the Defiant Stone or Darren's Darren's beer cart. No.
Okay, that sounds better than what I said. Traveling ale house. I like that.
I kind of like I took the like a traveling circus, but like traveling pub, Darren's traveling pub or ale house. Which should it be?
I like ale house for now. I think that's got a really good ring to it.
All right, write that down.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's the more seedy, the seedy one.
Yeah, and then we don't have to do the more rich one right now. I think we should just go, unless that's what you want to do. Like, do you got some ideas for that?
Yeah. How about like the ivory anvil or hammer? The ivory hammer.
I don't know, but when you say ivory, I think it's maybe like closer to the orc section, because
Maybe.
it's like a hammer, but then it's kind of been grown over.
I was thinking just like you walk in and it's like pristine.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like old, like when I think of ivy, not old, but like dignified kind of, but like overgrown a little bit.
No, I'm thinking about like white piano keys, kind of.
Wait, oh, you're saying ivory? Oh my God, I'm so dumb. I'm thinking ivy. Oh man, ivory hammer. Okay, I'm gonna blame it on us being remote.
Okay, well, you said ivory like 6 times.
I know. I don't know what the heck's going on with my brain. I don't know.
No, like ivory, like the material.
Yeah. Okay. And the color.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm dumb. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ivory hammer. Okay. Yeah. That sounds a lot more elegant now that I think of it that way.
Yeah. So
yeah, I heard ivory, but I was thinking like ivy anvil, but that doesn't sound good.
Hold on to the ivy bit. We'll use that later. But okay. Yeah, the ivory anvil or the ivory hammer.
Ooh, I don't know. They both sound good.
They both do sound really good.
What are you leaning towards?
The ivory anvil sounds really good, but it's also very similar to our creaky anvil or leaky anvil, whatever it was in Buddy Log. So I'm leaning more towards the hammer.
Also, I like, I don't know if you do this, but I picture the sign hanging out outside the tavern.
Yeah, I do that.
When I'm thinking of names and like what it's kind of
what it looks like.
What the figure could be like. And so it's either basically a whitish anvil or a whitish hammer. So yeah.
I like anvil better, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it. Okay. The ivory anvil.
There it is.
Yeah, it definitely has a flow. Ivory anvil. Okay, well, we're making good time.
Who owns the ivory anvil?
Yeah. Well, this kind of goes back to, I'm not done those languages yet. And so once the language is made, I can get a bunch of names done.
Okay.
And then we can just, like for the Orcish language, I got like 75 names or something or more that we could pull from. So almost like I'm kind of hesitant to name dwarves now until I get that done.
All right. Well, we can put that on hold until that's done. Let's move on to the orcs then.
Okay. And is that what you were thinking about for the ivy?
Yeah. So with the orcs, I'm picturing like most of their buildings are probably like elegant but simple, or like the whole district kind of looks like a garden where like there's trees and there's buildings like made into them, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, kind of like Rivendell in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, or I was kind of more thinking of like Darnassus from World of Warcraft, or the Berenstain Bears,
Oh, okay. A
or
little more
like
like
Keebler
rustic.
Elves or something, where like they're living in the tree partially. Some of the buildings aren't, obviously. Then like some are like built into this tree, or it's like a tree house. What I'm thinking of for the first inn, the little fancier one, would be maybe the or the whichever one, but like the overgrown ivy or something like that.
Going back to kind of that imagery that I messed up on earlier.
Yeah.
Something the overgrown bit. I like that. And yeah, it could go both ways, right? Like overgrown and dignified, or like overgrown run down.
Yeah. The overgrown ivy pub or the overgrown ivy inn.
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of the pubs in The Hobbit. Is the Ivy Bush?
I
Isn't
have
it?
no idea.
Oh man, I'm having trouble recalling. So yeah, I don't know, but I do like the overgrown aspect.
Okay. So you have the orcish names. Who owns this inn?
Yeah, well, if we go for the same letter, alliteration.
Okay. Either O for overgrown or I for ivy.
Okay, and it doesn't look like the way I made the language. There's not too many like vowels for the starting of names.
Okay.
Right. I kind of wanted it to sound a little harsher, so I use consonants
Okay.
for the beginnings. So I don't even know if any start with a vowel at all. That can't be right. Oh yeah, there are vowels.
I'm picturing a orcish woman.
Okay, I was kind of feeling the same thing.
So she's kind of like motherly and like very sweet, and I'm picturing her name having something to do with like being named after a flower of some kind.
Okay.
And like maybe people call her Ivy because, she loves plants.
Yeah, like the first name is Abby, ABI, and then the next one is Arby. But that probably sounds too much like Arby's.
Abby?
Yeah.
I like that.
Simple. Just ABI. I
like it.
Okay. Abby the Orc.
Abby the Orc. Very sweet. Maybe like a middle-aged orcish lady.
Okay. Well, let's keep rolling. We could always come back and like build them a little more.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of want to use another one of these names because I spent way too much time working on them that I want to just be able to showcase some names.
Okay. So grab another name that you like.
Okay. Oh, now I'm on the spot. There's Furlass. That's another one for a chick or a woman, I should say.
Okay.
There's Greifer, Cthulhu, Vantham.
Okay.
Pick any of these
like.
coming out at you? Oh, I was just saying them then. I thought you'd be like, oh, that sounds good.
What was that last one?
What was it? Arbo?
Argo?
Arbo.
Okay.
Yeah. Not too sure. I like thinking of the name first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like of the tavern.
Oh, okay.
And then kind of working that way. I don't normally go name first and then.
I usually do it if I'm stuck, I'll go, okay, who is this person, and what would they name their thing? That's nice. Okay, who is Arbo? Well, and is this the more fancy one or the?
I feel like this is the seedier one.
Seedier one. Okay, so it's seedy. Yeah. This person is kind of gruff, maybe a little scary.
Okay.
Maybe it's by the water.
Okay, so
I'm thinking like the something trout or the jumping trout.
Trout. Okay, so it means I could like maybe start with a T. I don't have to, but it just narrows it down,
Okay.
What about? Or here's one kind of standing out to me. What about Shermack?
Shermack? I like that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's like SHIR M-A-K.
Okay. Shermack the Orc. He's gruff. He got an eye patch.
What? When did he get that?
Well, he got it a while back, probably some kind of hunting accident.
Okay. And he's by the water, right?
He's by the water. Maybe he like really likes fishing. And like their menu has a lot of like fish type of dishes.
Yeah. What did you call it? The jumping trout? Or?
The jumping trout.
And you know what? I can actually turn that into I can make it orcish. So I won't do it now just for the sake of time.
Yeah.
But next time, maybe I'll transfer some of these, well, the orc ones anyway, into the orc language and see how they sound, and we can kind of choose.
Yeah.
Whether we keep them in common
or maybe they have two signs.
Maybe
the place is bilingual, right?
Yeah, it probably would be in that city for sure. In Delta.
Yeah, probably have a couple signs. But actually, I think with that, we are going to move on to our inspiration, because we're kind of all right. And so, tell me about your weekly inspiration, Greg.
Okay, I will. I am subscribed to those master classes.
Yeah,
that you maybe see ads for. But anyway, they just added a new one. It's Nancy Cartwright.
Okay.
And she teaches voice acting.
Okay.
She is the voice of Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
And she does Nelson and Ralph and Rod and Todd on there as well. And she's done a bunch of other stuff. But that's not the point. Point was that she was teaching this voice acting. And one of the things that she said to me I thought was really cool. And it was that, and I'm paraphrasing, you have to know your voice. Like, you have to know who you are and know your voice before you can do another voice.
Okay.
And I'm kind of butchering that, but basically the way my brain went in terms of ideas was I kind of thought of like Arya Stark and the Faceless people, or what those guys called?
The like, Faceless Men?
Yeah, and it's kind of like maybe there's like a magic system or something that allows you to change kind of who you are, but the downfall of it is that you can lose who you are.
Okay.
Unless you're like a really strong person, like you know who you are, you know your identity. Because then if you were like to change who you are, you would have a crisis, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized how closely that was to Arya Stark, like, right? Because she is basically trying to kill that part of her. Right?
Yeah. Until she's not.
Yeah, and then, well, I won't say what happens, whatever. But yeah, no. So that was my idea. Now, and that was it. It was just kind of one small little thing, and I thought, you know, I could probably kind of sculpt that into something. And then, like, when I get ideas, one of the first things I usually do is like see if it's already been done, or like, well, most ideas have, but can I think of something immediately? And so then I did, right?
Yeah.
I thought of George R.R. Martin. So now when I'm developing my idea, I'm going to try and make it as little as possible like that. You know, so then it doesn't just seem like, oh, I just ripped that off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was my inspiration. So I'll see what I can do with that. And then, yeah, also just learning how to do character voices is kind of cool. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So what I've been doing this week is last week when I was editing, I'm constantly trying to like increase like the quality of our production here. And as you know, the other week I got a new mouse because I could hear when I was editing, I could hear me clicking between pages and such, which drove me crazy. I'm sure it drove our listeners crazy. And I know that there is an echo in the room that I'm recording. So I was looking up ways to reduce that. So I found out that, you know, something as simple as closing the blind can help. Throwing a blanket over the door. I have ordered a bunch of acoustic panels that I'm going to put up when they get up here to try to help cut down on the echo in the studio here. So I was just looking at other people's setups and home recording studios and stuff like that. Just looking for some inspiration on how I can go about, making the podcast just a better quality.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think we should do is just kind of like have a little update or like a before and after at least or something.
Yeah. So I think
You
what
know?
I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my office, because if you guys have seen it, it's like a war zone in here right now. There's just stuff everywhere. So I'm going to clean up. I'm going to maybe hopefully get another shelf or something to put my stuff on, and maybe more set this up as a more dedicated workspace. I'm going to take pictures and some video along the way, and just like do a little log of how it's going.
Yeah, oh, sounds good. And then hopefully this lockdown doesn't last too much longer, and we can get back into person and do this again.
Yeah, so hopefully we're finding out this week whether or not the lockdown in Manitoba is going to continue the way it has. We're hoping for some a little bit more relaxed restrictions. Not that I really want to do, like honestly, I'm okay with not going to stores for non-essentials. That's fine. It's more really the only thing that's affecting me is like the podcast, like you and me. And I know relatively, like, you're going to school online, and like the only time you go out is to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
I just go to the grocery store and go to work. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're fairly safe with each other. But, you don't want to chance. That's why we're doing this remotely, right? We don't want to chance anything right now. But hopefully we can get back to recording in person, and it's much easier to give you like a visible cue, like, hey, wrap this up, than we've been trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's good though, and like so much of this stuff during the quarantine, I hate to talk about it too much, but I'm going to try and be positive here.
Yeah,
it's like if you could do it during the quarantine and like during COVID and all this, it's only going to make us and whatever you're doing that much better when you get back to normal.
Exactly. So
that's the way I've been trying to look at it.
I'm okay with a lot of the stuff. I think it's a good idea. I think that they should have made these restrictions a lot sooner than they did, right?
Yeah.
That being said, like, really the only thing that I don't like about it is that we got to record this podcast remotely, which, I mean, is a small sacrifice really in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, so with that, it's kind of what I wanted to talk about there. If you guys want to get a hold of us or come say hi, we have a couple social media accounts. We have Facebook, Building Blank Club, World Building Podcast. We have Instagram, Building Blank Podcast, and you can always email us at buildingblankpodcast@gmail.com. Also, we have Discord. We also have YouTube. If you are listening to us on YouTube, all the links will be in the description. Everything, the links will be in the show notes for everything. But I really want to promote our Discord. We go in there, and this is where we kind of like talk about what we're doing. It's more of a direct like link. If you guys want to hang out, you and I play Among Us together, which would be fun to play with some more friends. And we're thinking about doing some D&D type games over Discord. So if anyone's interested in playing with us, just hop on in.
Cool. Well, I think that's about sums it up.
Right. Yeah. So everyone have a